Hello and welcome, heroes, to the Crit Academy Social Distance Podcast. I am your host, Justin.
I'm your guest, Matthew.
I'm your co-host Ian.
I'm your co-host Austin.
This podcast was created to provide you, our heroes, with new and reusable material for both players and DMs.
We hope to inspire you with creative content that you can bring with you on your next adventure.
Our show may not be suitable for young children, but neither is our D&D games.
Nope.
Never. Actually, never.
That's funny. So as you can tell, we doing something a little different. We are following the pandemic guidelines recommended by pretty much every person in the science community. So we are streaming virtually today. That being said, if you have followed our show, if you're joining us for the first time, thank you. If you end up enjoying the show and you would like to support us, visit us at critacademy.com and check out our Patreon page, some of our best-selling D&D supplements, or just subscribe to our newsletter to be entered to win the fat loots that we give away every single week. Now, thank you for joining us today here at the Crit Academy Studios, where everyone's laid off and I'm still in my pajamas.
Speak for yourself.
I'm laid off. So yeah.
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 I'm still working.
Yeah, you're the only one that's working out.
Because I think you're essential. Actually, you're the one I'm scared of because you go everywhere and meet people and take pictures and video and shit.
No, I don't.
Isn't that what
No,
you do?
you
What do you do? I thought you worked for the news.
I do, but I spend most of the time at the station because I edit the morning show.
Oh,
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But yeah, where everything's made up and your roles don't matter.
Yep.
Yep, that's right. Your roles are like Wildemount without the Mighty Nine.
Oh man.
Yep, the Mighty Nine. If you do not watch Critical Role, shame on you. Well, not really shame on you. More or less, why don't you know who Critical Role is? Anyways,
More or less,
I'm
yeah.
really excited about today's episode. We're going to be covering the Explorer's Guide to Wildemount. That is the campaign setting for the very popular Critical Role podcast. So, before all that, we're going to move to our Let's Talk About Blank segment. I have a really interesting topic for discussion today, you guys. Did you guys see this?
Yes.
Unfortunately.
It's an article from Screen Rant called Dungeons and Dragons 5 Most Badass Classes and 5 of the Weakest. Now,
Which is where I'm a little like.
yeah, so I want to keep it, I don't want this to run too long, but I had a lot of feelings on this because, first of all, they don't tell you what the metric for what badass and what weak is. I mean,
Yeah.
you could argue if they're you could assume that they're talking about
Like maybe the
damage.
strength of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It could. Because if it's just DPS, I mean, I guess I can understand Fighter being at this number one spot because he just gets 4 attacks, and if you're depending on which route you take as well, you get just ridiculous damage.
Right.
But Ranger at weakest then is like, why? You get Hunter's Mark, you get all these other bonuses that you get from depending on which subclass you take, like
Especially the hunter.
Yeah,
So-
like this. I don't know.
So let's go through this. So at number 10 here for the weakest, they picked the Ranger, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now if once again we don't know what their metric is, but I agree that there are some builds with the Ranger that are very, very high damage, especially is it the Hunter?
I think it's Hunter.
I think yeah, where you get the extra D8 when you hit something that's injured on top of your weapon damage, on top of your
Yeah.
Hunter's Mark.
Yeah. Like you can
Pretty
just
much.
deal ridiculously consistent damage. I don't know why. But even then, like even stuff like Gloomstalker, right? Like
Right.
that is such. It's not a raw combat class, but you
Right.
can do so much with it. Like they're like, oh yeah, because I think it says in here, it feels too classic and it's difficult for people to not fall into traps of doing the same tropes over and over again. But like you also with Gloomstalker can set up traps and you can hide so absurdly well
Yeah.
that you could even say you hide better than the rogue in some cases.
Definitely.
That's crazy to me. And then even if you wanted to go like super crazy, you can I think expertise, you can it's like a is that a feat you can take? Like get expertise in one skill?
I don't know that there's a feat for that, but you can multi-class to get it, I guess.
Yeah, and even then you could multi-class. So like I don't know. Like if you
I
really wanted to go overboard.
I want to point out a couple things. A, I've seen all 13 classes in 5th edition played effectively. B, as you guys have pointed out, they did not give their guidelines for how they came up with their metrics.
Yep.
C, at no point do they even specify which edition they are talking about in this article.
You know, I didn't.
I didn't even notice that. I just assumed it was 5th edition because some of the pictures are from 5th edition books, but yeah, you're right. I guess
Yeah,
I
it
guess
says
it doesn't.
Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah.
Huh,
Yeah.
yeah. So aside from the
Flaws all
obvi-
over.
yeah,
I mean, you mentioned it in the Wizard, which I verified by doing a quick search, but other than that, they don't.
Yeah.
And admittedly, there are some editions where some of the classes listed are subpar and vice versa, but it's like, at the end of the day, I feel this is very opinionated. So,
yes, and that's why I want to talk about it because I think that to categorize the classes in a way, you need to really, without setting bounds, you're really setting people up for failure. For instance, I personally think the Ranger is a fantastic and powerful class, so I don't consider it weak. I consider it less DPS, especially when I pick the Beastmaster, but you get a shit ton of utility that comes from it. And
Yeah.
that's the trade off, utility for damage, and you can't have both, or what's the point?
I
Right,
do have
like-
an idea about it though.
What's that?
Like when I know that this article is opinionated, but I think it's opinionated because I'd say it's like a majority of people who have a similar circumstance don't know how to use these classes very well tactfully.
I mean,
I can see
kind of-
that.
I could see that too because Rogue is in weak and it's on the number 4 spot, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
I love Rogue, and I know that Rogue is like, what the fuck sometimes. Like it also says also magic also makes any of their abilities not as useful. What do you mean? So they can sometimes feel a bit weak compared to other classes that they might come against. And I'm like, how? Because you have evasion, which is, I think, by and large, still one of the most absurd abilities in 5e.
Yeah, as a DM, I can totally agree with that.
Like everyone
Like,
has
half
to
damage.
eat shit with like an 8th level fireball that explodes in their face. The rogue can just triple flip out of it and just land on their feet and be like, "Oh, that was cute."
I envision him like when Luke Skywalker takes on that barrage of attacks and just dusting it.
Yeah, he just does one of these, just like, ah, totally dodge that.
And judging, the other thing that I think is interesting, and I think this is what, honestly, and this is just me haranguing on Ian, one of the things I noticed is that the barbarian is considered weak too, and their argument was can't use magic, and they are mostly useful for hand-to-hand combat. They are also harder to individualize in interesting ways. That couldn't be farther from the truth.
Oh yeah,
Come on.
barbarians can be all sorts of, like, you can flavor so much shit with barbarians. Like, I always wanted to think, like, if you could, because you could do something super cool with it, right? So instead of you like taking half damage because you're just so angry that the blade inside you is just like, nah, I ain't feeling it. Like, what if you're like Ultra Instinct Goku? Like, it only nicks you because you're just so in the zone of fighting. It just goes like,
That's how
Speaking
I
of
feel
Goku,
about it.
Speaking of Goku, you could be as a barbarian, you could be as dumb as Goku for everything else except combat.
Mhm.
yeah, like, and like, I don't know.
Well,
That just makes me sad.
The other thing they talk about is how they're not flexible. Also, if you want to know how much flavor a barbarian can have, go back and listen to 50 Shades of Rage, where we talk about literally
Yes.
dozens of ways to make rage interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it says it's not flexible, and I disagreed with that because if you look at the different archetypes, they do a variety of different things. Whether it's is it the Storm Herald one where you get
Yeah.
like aura energy around you or some shit?
Which is so cool.
The Totem one
Totem Barbarian
gives you all
equally.
these different features depending on the choices you pick. I mean, there's just
Path of the Zealot literally makes you a god. Like, I don't know, man.
pretty darn close.
Or makes
Pretty
you
darn close.
or makes you like X-Men's the Juggernaut or something.
yes.
Well,
I'm the
literally after a
Juggernaut,
certain point,
bitch.
when you get those unlimited rages, right? You can rage while raging. You can activate rage while raging. So you can reset your rage when you're making death saves, so you get to redo those death saves with infinite rages. So you literally, as the path of the zealot, you can't die.
At least for a little while.
No, because you can keep raging. You don't have to go in combat when you're at that point.
Oh,
So you can just
man.
keep raging nonstop until you just literally just don't die. Until someone heals you and you're like, oh, I can calm down now.
Oh, that's right. Because at one point you can. There's no limit on how. Okay, I get what you're saying. There's no
Mhm.
limit. Got ya.
You just wait till the 9th turn and like, I activate rage again.
So they do consider.
Although you stop raging in many cases after you
don't
don't
hit
take
something.
damage or don't attack, so...
And beating yourself in the face does not count. I've learned that.
Or friendly fire. Friendly fire
Really?
might fix that.
Are you sure?
Friendly fire could work, right?
As long as, because I think the only requirement is take damage.
Yeah.
Or-
So the wizard, the wizard is behind the barbarian. Everyone's knocked out. All he's got is his firebolt cantrip, and he's just pointing it at the barbarian. Kick their ass,
buddy. Keep fucking fighting, buddy. He's just fucking pissed. Like,
If you
I
stop, we
don't know what's
die.
happening.
Now I'm giving this article a lot of flack. There are some ones that I agree with. They mentioned the cleric as badass, and you know, it right along with the wizard, they talk about how it's got interesting backstory and customization options. To me, I'm starting to think that that's the metric they use to make them badass, because the wizard has all kinds of schools you can choose from. The cleric has like 7 or 8 different domains. But is that really what makes you badass?
Nope.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but then Bard is also going immediately after that. How can you not, like, if that's suddenly the metric of being able to, like, you know, do cool stuff with it, Bard is
Yeah.
quite literally that personified.
Like their first line says, where the
Yeah.
cleric is a magic class that has some unique capabilities and interesting spell, Bard kind of lacks in these areas.
Which is
what?
They literally can take spells from other people's spell list.
yeah, and on top of that, also have unique capabilities and interesting spells given their features where they can literally shout at a person to do worse.
So,
I don't know. Number 1 spider, we all agree.
Yep. Well, I'll admit though, my one gripe with the cleric is the fact they don't have a attack cantrip. They have save cantrip. I don't like that.
I made a post about that on the DM's group saying, do you prefer saves over attacks? And there was a surprising amount of people that their response was, oh, saves are the DM's job. I was like, you don't think that's more boring though? I mean, come on.
Right? Like, I
But-
don't know.
Yeah. So, anyways, obviously they did mark the fighter as number 1, and you can find the link to this article in our show notes or Google it yourself. But overall, I thought this was a really interesting article, but I really wish they would have did more than like a paragraph or in a sentence about their reasoning for that choice. And the inaccuracy of some of the choices was kind of just like, well, that's not accurate at all. Did you actually play the class or read the abilities?
Mhm.
You know, so
Yeah, that's one of my other questions for the people who write this article. There's just so many questions that might get unanswered.
Yeah.
Well, this was written by Amanda Steele. So send your complaints to her department.
Agreed.
So I think that'll do it for our Let's Talk About Blank segment.
Yeah.
Before we move on to our main topic, the Explorer's Guide to Wildemount, we have a wonderful gift to give away, compliments of our sponsor, Loresmith. Austin, would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. This is the Modular Dungeon Tiles Arcania from Loresmith, as previously mentioned. Modular dungeon tiles are an easy way to create your own beautiful digital maps. The Arcania lets you make dark, shadowy dungeon maps rich with fumes of arcane secrets. Maybe they'll find a sword, maybe a demon. That's your choice.
Who is our winner today?
It would be oh boy. Horus of Oz, I'm going to guess.
That I would agree with that.
Yeah. So yay, Horus of Oz. Congrats.
Congratulations,
The
Horus,
modular dungeon tiles.
Horus of Oz. We hope you
All that-
enjoy the product.
All that made me think of is I think I found the YouTube channel where a lot of the Warhammer 40k gifts came from. If the Emperor had a text-to-speech device.
Holy crap.
if you're following us and you didn't win, no need to worry. We got you guys covered. You can actually head on to critacademy.com/luresmith and you'll get some free digital terrain as well as some other really neat stuff. So definitely check them out. We love giving away fat loots here on the show. Because we
Just not
like
in our
you
D and D
guys.
games.
Oh yeah, no, I'm such a stingy asshole.
In the very beginning of the game, you're like, you guys can have all of this shit, but don't expect anything else. Just nothing. You want a potion? Find it. Bury it up from 6 feet under in the guy's grave. I'm just like, oh shit, all right, here we go.
I'm very much like that. But I did let you guys. I give you guys a plot point this campaign, and I
Oh, yeah,
let
we
you
got
use
so
character
much
options,
stuff.
which are like micro feats. You can go back and listen to that episode too.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff. So I mean, it
So
definitely
quit your
balances
bitching.
out. Yeah.
So
So many possibilities.
I basically already told you what I'm going to do with mine. Just a question of when I'm going to do it.
right,
Oh,
right.
I have an idea when I might use mine. Maybe, depending. We'll see.
So I don't know what I just came into, but I just saw liches in. We need pinups for liches and jockstraps. What the hell is going on in chat?
That's
Oh
know.
my god.
Well,
Pinups. Anyway.
put it in Reddit, and I'm sure someone will make it.
All
That's all
right.
I.
So
It's
moving
never
on.
been done.
Moving on to our main topic, Explorer's Guide to Wildemount. If you don't know, the Explorer's Guide to Wildemount provides everything that you need to play Dungeons and Dragons on the continent of Wildemount. If you do not know, this is actually one of the continents in the Exandria setting, which is the campaign setting of Critical Role. If you follow that sort of stuff, you'll know that they also release, is it Tordorai? What is the other?
Tal'Dorei.
Tel'Torai, that's the one.
Tal'Dorei, Isilra, Marquette, and gosh, what was that last one? I was looking at it earlier.
Yeah, nobody knows.
I don't know offhand.
I was
but
impressed somebody knew more than the two.
yes.
But what is
Shout out
Wildemount? It's a land of war, betrayal, and swashbuckling. What's really cool is it's comprised of 4 different regions. Wildemount provides endless, potential for adventure in the land, brewing conflict, and incredible magics. What I thought was really cool is that it has such a big focus on the tension in the political climate between a couple of different things, specifically the Dwendalian, is that how you say that? Dwendalian Empire, and the light worshipping waste folk of Zorhas. Did I get that wrong too?
Jorhas. You gotta put a little J
Jorhas.
on
Yeah,
the-
I don't do that, so I'm going with how it's
Alright.
spelled on my paperwork. What makes
blame
this
you.
cool is it is just a massive, vibrant backdrop for any Dungeons and Dragons campaign. Now,
Absolutely.
the one thing that I thought was really cool, actually, before we get into the nitty gritty about the book, overall, do you guys want to each kind of give us your personal feelings of kind of what you saw and read through and what you know about the campaign setting? I know we all are sharing one book, so it's kind
Right.
of, we have a very limited time with it, but I'd love to hear what you guys think just from the off the old dome. Ian?
Full disclaimer, I don't think I was... Actually, I have not been able to get my hands on the books 3 ahead of time, unfortunately, so it is what it is.
If only somebody had said you could come pick it up.
I mean, I just flipped through it. There was so much information for one.
Yes.
I want to put that out there real quick as like there's no way that we had enough time to actually read through all this.
No.
0 time.
Go ahead,
That
it's fine.
I'm pretty sure it's bigger than like the player's handbook and even like the guide to Ravnica. Like
It is pretty
it-
huge.
Yeah.
That's what she said.
But I mean, we're gonna go through a lot of it anyway. But one thing that I don't immediately see on this that we can refer to is there's actually a map. A
Oh
nice
my
handy
God,
dandy map in the
yes!
back of it, and it's gorgeous
Yes, it's
from what I
big.
could gather.
Yeah, I gotta
It's-
tear. I haven't torn it out yet, but it looks nice. It reminds me of the
Yeah.
one that came with the
The
Dragon
Avernus one?
Heist.
Oh, Dragon Heist? Okay.
The Avernus. There's
Oh,
one.
yeah,
Is there one in Avernus?
There's one in Avernus. But I think
Clearly, I didn't pull it out then because I didn't know it was back there.
But both of the maps are really good, and this one was no exception. Like
Yeah.
it is definitely on par with the rest of them. So I
Right,
was
for
really
sure.
excited about that.
What about you, Matt?
I was looking at it earlier the past couple of days, and I can read this online on D&D Beyond, and there was a lot of things here. There are races. Some of them are familiar with that I've seen on the show. Some that you can see in the player's handbook, but some of the races actually have a backstory with
Oh,
the campaign setting.
I forgot that they did. Yeah.
One
Yeah.
example was the Dragonborn. There are two different types. What was it? I know that one of them is the Ravenites, which are tailless Dragonborn,
Interesting.
and the what was it?
I would have a name, but the book's so goddamn big.
Oh yeah. It's
Oh, here it is. Here it is. The Dracon Blood. They're basically like aristocratic magic casting Dragonborn with tails.
Yep. Which I
Huh.
love, because that to me is very close to one of the reasons why I like half dragons versus dragonborns, because I love having a tail. That's why I also love the tiefling.
Mhm.
So the one thing that I really liked about this, you mentioned the races. They don't reinvent the wheel. I don't.
No,
There
not
there
at
was
all.
a few. There were mostly subclasses. I don't think or mostly sub races. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think that there was like a brand new actual race. Was there? It's just
Not.
reflavorings, I think, of ones that exist.
Yeah, I was
Like,
gonna say I didn't see any when I flipped through it,
Yeah.
but I mean there was the one that was I mean we're gonna talk about later, and I'm really excited to talk about it,
Right.
which is the Hollow one. But nothing that stood out to me
Right.
anyway.
What is cool though is they utilize all the stuff in the player's handbook, but they give you a unique backstory
Mm-hmm.
that applies to this setting, which makes them different. To me, the most notable one was the orcs. The orcs aren't automatically just pure evil bastards out to destroy everything. Um,
Yeah.
Now, I've always played them that way, but to have a setting recognize that
Yeah.
is pretty awesome.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, and I think there was a role playing aspect during the Critical Role's current campaign when the party actually visited Jorhas, and a member of the party is a half orc, and he was raised up in an orphanage, and he actually meets this blacksmith half orc, and um, this NPC was just giving the half orc of the party a talk about don't be ashamed of you being a half orc, just own it.
don't be ashamed.
That's
Yeah.
kind of cool though, because it's not like he was immediately. Again, this goes into like, he's not just some in the eyes of that blacksmith. He wasn't just a guy who was going to just all about savagery, murder, bloodshed, blood for my blood gods kind of guy.
Yeah, no, this guy was a
He's like, oh hey,
this was a
you're-
sane half orc blacksmith in Jorhas. Think
Like-
about it.
he was like, hey, don't be ashamed of what you are. You're a pretty cool dude. We're both pretty cool dudes.
Steve says, "You is smart. You is pretty." um, so there's a lot of really great stuff in this. First, the one thing that I thought was really cool is this book does something I don't think all the rest of them do, and it focuses in heavily on the relationships of the different kingdoms and how they treat each other, how they interact, the sorts of issues that are ongoing between the different factions. So, if you're looking to run a political heavy sort of campaign where massive battles are the difference are the result of you failing to make a perfect negotiation, this is probably a book you're going to want to pick up regardless if you follow the Critical Role show or the content, because you can easily change those names out and those ideas out for your own homebrew setting or even in the Forgotten Realms.
Yeah, there's like a dozen different factions and societies in the book.
Yes.
Yeah, like
Like that
there's
is
so much going on
Yeah.
at all times too. And what I think, and I'm not sure if it's actually already in here, but I don't see it in here.
No,
but
I left
every
it very
single
general.
okay, every like city or town in Wildemount if you're going through the book, there's so much information on every single city and town. It tells you like the population percentages of like who's in there. It tells you kind of what's going on, what kind of crime rate they have.
Yes.
That is
You
huge.
touched on the one thing that I don't think I've seen before is the fact that there's little segments for each area of the actual types of crimes that are notoriously going on in those areas. It's not just, hey, there's crime everywhere. It's this is a very specific type of crime that happens here. So for instance, in the many hosts of Garthed, I don't even know what the hell that is,
Probably
but
close.
it's like 40% goblinkin, 20% orcs, 15% humans, and they break it down by the population, which I think is cool. So it says here that the some of the Aurora Watch soldiers keep the peace and manage the day-to-day quarrels within Ithgrathed. I don't know how to say that. However, the majority of the hosts people are expertly trained warriors, so they both handle their own problems and make it which makes it difficult for any law enforcement to impose any laws on them. The
See,
idea
that's cool too. I love that.
it says the idea of attempting to punish it or incapacitate a criminal ogre or anger giant keeps all but the strongest for basically taking a post here in this location. So obviously, to the way this tells me is the regular sorts of like brutish kind of conflicts probably aren't going to be as common as something else because everyone else can stab you pretty easily or slit your throat. You know, now that's a unique one just because it's not mostly humanoid, but they get into
Right.
all kinds of different types of crimes. You know, like this one for Broken Vale Marsh says that the society within the village operates without money, gold, or emphasis on
Ooh.
any sort of precious stones, which instantly changes what's of value. What do you think becomes of value when it's not gold, precious stones, and money?
I have to think favors.
Ah,
Right.
nailed it.
Services.
Yeah.
Yes.
So favors, bargaining, services, all those things start to become part of what drives the crime in the area. So
I imagine being an assassin would be haven in there, right? Because like you don't even do it for the money. Like now they owe you because you literally just ended someone's life. Now, depending on how much they value that in that city, that could change things heavily for you.
right. And
You could instantly become the richest man without having any money at all. Like think
Actually,
about that.
I think there's like an island chain somewhere in Exandria. I forget what the name of it was, but it's basically an island chain version of Baldur's Gate, which I think would be perfect for what Austin was mentioning.
that is cool.
Boat assassins.
Yeah. Or
Vampires. What were you gonna say, Ian?
when you're talking about the currency, I kept thinking about like the John Oliver sketch about how they're talking about how Scotland's old currency was cheap and physical violence. I offer 3 sheep and a punch in the face. Take it or leave it.
That's awesome.
Now it did just occur to me that we were talking about the relationship between stuff. I think Ravnica did a pretty good job of that
Oh,
too with the
absolutely.
guilds.
Oh yeah, yeah. It just didn't go into like the cities and how they interact with each other. Whereas Ravnica is kind of just this big overarching world where guilds just kind of own places. I don't think it had really any like towns or cities that specifically said what kind of crime goes on, because obviously the guild owned it, and that's probably what kind of crime went on. Probably.
Yeah. So
If any.
So once again, there's a lot of stuff that's kind of going on here. I would say half of the book is all about the lore of the world, which you would need because it's a setting book, right?
Yes.
But don't let that deter you because there is a lot of stuff in this book that goes beyond just the
Just the setting itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's even a calendar system in this book.
Yes.
I did not know that.
And can we just say that it's awesome that it's on 10 months and not 12 like our shitty one? Though that might be true of Forgotten Realms too. I'm not sure.
No, I don't know.
Taco says for bargaining, spices, food, building materials. I can get behind that.
Oh, yeah.
That's good. Food is definitely a big one, right? Because not everyone has that
Has to
shit.
be, yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the other things I want to talk about. Did you guys get a chance to look at any of the unique subclasses? Because there's one specifically I want to talk about.
Yeah.
And I know everyone wants to talk about it. It's the Mesmer.
Yeah. Well, the Echo Knight, yes, but it's a mesmer. But
Yes, I won't. I refuse to call it Echo Knight because it's a mesmer. Guild
the
Wars 2
Echo
did it
Knight
first.
sounds so cool. It's an
It
echo of
definitely,
you.
it definitely does sound pretty
Ugh.
cool. So I kind of jumped ahead a little bit in our show notes, so
That's okay.
don't shoot me for
We'll
that.
just do it out of order a little bit. That's fine.
It'll be
You're
a
right.
lot
We'll
out of
try
order
for you.
because I'm just going by what I'm looking at. But
Mhm.
so who wants to tell us what the mesmer or the Echo Knight is?
The Echo Knight, a mysterious and feared frontline warrior of the Kryn dynasty, the Echo Knight has mastered the art of using dunamis to summon the fading shades of unrealized timelines to aid them in battle. Surrounded by echoes of their own might, they charge into the fray as a cycling swarm of shadows and strikes.
Now, go ahead.
I love the fact that it says it used unrealized timelines. That
Yes,
is so badass.
I was just about to get into it. So, in order to understand what he just said, you need to understand what dunamis is. Now, to
Mhm.
me, this is
Actually, dunamis?
fantastic. Is it dunamis? Dunamis? I don't give a fuck. It's still dumb. I mean, it's still cool. So, in order to understand that, the whole idea is that every choice and every crossroads you come across, and you have to make a choice in potentially some other timeline, that choice was made. And basically, what you're doing is you're ripping the essence from those paths. I don't know if that's like a multiverse thing,
Probably.
and pulling it into the reality. Now these illusions and even some of it's magic too. You're pulling
Mhm.
power from these other potential these what if moments is what I think we call
Exactly.
them. They're what if
Yes.
moments. If you went left, what happens if I would have went right? But I went left, so I can't do nothing with it. Well, they're harnessing that energy and twisting it into spells, and in this case, into echoes of the person because it is them, right? So
Right.
what I was envisioning when I was seeing this is the warrior is up against an ogre. The ogre swings its great axe, and for an instant, the fighter envisions himself jumping over it instead of ducking, but at the last second decides to duck. I imagine him activating his power and then this shadow appearing after it leaped over his blade on the other side of him.
Right. So
Because,
it, like splits off like this,
yes,
right? And
because
that's so cool.
either one of those choices could have been something he would have did. And that it blew my mind. It's
I'm
such
kind of
a
thinking
cool
of
idea.
I'm thinking of something like Peter Pan's Echo or something, or not Echo,
Shadow?
Shadow.
Yes. I
Oh,
would say that's pretty cool.
Well, the description made me think of the Mistborn series with if somebody consumes Etienne, where they can see a few seconds into the future when they fight.
Yeah, when the
And you can see,
go ahead.
and it gets even more chaotic when both fighters can both see like 12 seconds into the future at the same time, because then it just creates fractured timelines that both people can see at once. Like, crap.
I'm gonna be honest. I was so hung up on Mesmer, I totally forgot the Mistborn Adium or whatever it is thing. That is a really great example of that, where your shadows of all the possibilities of what you could do happening in an instant, and then you just pulling one of those to help you. Oh, that's awesome.
Could you imagine if you were the Echo into someone else's Echo Knight though? Could you imagine like that as like a weird like roleplay opportunity? Like you're being yanked out into to be pulled into some other Echo Knight. He's like, you're an Echo Knight too. He's like, yeah. How'd you get here?
That
Well,
would-
I'm your Echo.
So now to understand, these things only have one hit point.
Yes.
But they're like immune to conditions. They're immune to, I don't remember everything, but they're immune to a lot of shit, except for being like attacked. The Echo is a magical, translucent, gray image that lasts until it is destroyed or until you dismiss it with a bonus action. And if you manifest another one, it just dissipates, right?
Yeah.
Or you're incapacitated. Now, it says it's immunity to all conditions. And if it has to make a saving throw, it uses your same stats. So it does have a static AC that's different from your own, where it's just 14 plus your proficiency bonus. But shit, that's still 16 at level 1. But you
Yeah.
don't get it to level 3, but it's still, what is your, I think your proficiency bonus is still 2 there. But
And like even then, like, could you imagine having a proficiency bonus of 6 towards the later levels where now
Oh,
it's
yeah.
20? Like what the hell?
yeah. And
Manifest it.
you do get an extra one at a higher level. But what I think is really cool, much like the Mesmer, you can teleport and switch places with your echoes,
Yes.
like as a bonus action, I think.
that could be interesting to solve certain puzzles. So like for instance, maybe you do the whole like, all right, you jump on my hand and I throw you up, right? Well, you do this with your echo. You shoot your echo up, and he grabs on and gets on top, and then you disenchant your echo and cause another one. Now you both are up there.
I hadn't considered that. I was just thinking about all the cool ways that it
That you
my
can
character
stab somebody.
pretty much. Well, no, just like what if you drew like a maybe you allow bombs because I know that there's guns and stuff in this
Yes.
in Exandria. Maybe you've got a TNT bomb and you're holding it and you're like, we're both gonna die. Psych, and switch places with your freaking shadow or your
Could you imagine
echo.
your echo looking at it like, you son of a bitch, and then it just blows up?
It just fizzles.
Oh man.
What do you got? Is there any other points on this? I don't want to get too much into the mechanics. So we'll be talking about it all night. But,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's enough for me. I could go on about it, and that's kind of the issue. So
Yeah.
we'll keep it there for now.
How about we start? How about we continue by going to the hollow one?
I agree.
fucking love the Hollow one.
So why
It
don't you
is-
tell us why?
Because it is a character that is pretty much dead, but he's not, because he says "fuck you." That's why. Uh, well, kind of, but anyway, it's a character who perishes in the course of the campaign, and you know, they might return as a Hollow One, created by this mysterious forces that like scar land. So basically, it's like this magical being that's kind of like you. It kind of the land itself pretty much said you're not going to die yet, or
Right.
maybe you won't die at all. It's a supernatural gift that bestows upon a character's special traits. Most notable is the cling to life feature, which is if you're making death saves, you roll 16 or higher, you just get up. You're like, all right, I got 1 HP, I'm back. And
And that's so easy.
I don't think that has like I don't think it needs a long rest or anything, does it?
The feature it doesn't say there's any limit to my knowledge, does it?
I don't
It
think
does not say. I'm looking at it now,
did
and it
not,
doesn't say
yes.
that.
It says it also has an active ability, I forgot, which can cause fear into somebody
Yeah.
because you're just this kind of dead guy looking at some dude, and he's like, I don't like that.
I do like the fact that it considers you a revenant or a zombie undead thing for the
Yes.
purposes of magic.
I do like that as well.
So
I was gonna say that reminded me of the Revenant race from earlier editions.
Oh yeah. You're right. That is
And
very
that-
similar, isn't it?
And for that matter, I think in the Dark Souls series, the fact that the player characters are called Hollows too, and they are in the
Mhm.
half-dead state. So
Yes. There's also, I mean, even like, no, yeah, that's kind of like what I thought of too. Was immediately was like the Dark Souls like hollows. They're kind of like that in a weird way. So
Yeah.
thought that
So the reason I think it's interesting is, your cleric is now gonna have to be a little more careful when they use turn undead. Because it
Yeah.
just it affects each undead in a certain range of like 30 feet, I think. So
oh, I didn't think about that.
Mhm.
so I could just see the party cleric, be gone, foul beast, and then watching Fred run into a wall.
He's like, ah, I gotta go. Oh man.
Good.
I also like if you're like a newer player as well, and you're afraid of like dying, which I mean I guess all of us should be to some extent. But if you're a barbarian, probably not.
Right.
But I can imagine this would be like another like weirdly like beginner friendly like sub race, right?
Right.
I guess is it
Right.
considered a sub race? I don't really know.
No, it is just it's
Um,
closer to a they mark it as a supernatural gift that your DM can bestow upon somebody.
Okay.
Honestly, for me, it's oh shit, I TPK'd you. Guess what? You're all hollow ones now.
That'd be fun. Could you
Yeah.
imagine us
Sorry.
all like these dead guys like we have a mission to accomplish, and like this guy who we were supposed to meet's like, what the fuck happened to you guys?
Face is all gray and pale, and your eyes are all white, and
It's so cool though.
Yeah,
Well,
have you
it'd be
guys
cool
seen
to
the
maybe-
artwork for the hollow one?
Yes, and it looks
it's
awesome.
gorgeous. See
I
if I can
would
get it on
love-
the camera there.
Hopefully, yeah, like that, like the swords in his chest. He's like, I don't give a shit right now. Oh, and that'd be another really cool thing about it is you can do that kind of stuff to your players, right? Oh, the sword went easily straight into your chest, but it did nothing to you. You're
I
still
didn't even
standing
think
there.
about that. That is so cool.
Wow.
Or like you're on fire and it just doesn't matter because
Like
you're
just
dead
walk into
already.
a burning building.
Like, ah.
So yeah, there's a lot to this, and I don't
Which is-
want to have to go through all of it, but there are other things in this book that we're not going to cover. There's over 30 unique monsters and even a special like flying ship, I think.
Yeah.
And what's really cool is they found a way to make such a unique. Can I just give a huge shout out to the writers? So, obviously the lead was Matt Mercer, but I just want to give a huge shout out to James. I think it's Hake, James Intercasso, my man, and Chris Lockey. You guys did a phenomenal job, and kudos to the developing team as well. Managing editor Chris Perkins, what an awesome job! This is not just a product from the Critical Role team and lead Matt Mercer, but it's also from the Wizards of the Coast team, and a lot of work went into it. So kudos to you guys.
Which also makes the world of Critical Role an official part of the D&D multiverse.
Yep.
Which is also cool. I'm cool with that, honestly.
Yeah, I know there's some old curmudgeons that would be like, why won't they bring back Dark Sun or Dragonlance or
Adapt it yourself.
Yeah, go get the book you already have and just utilize it.
And just modify it for 5e. I don't know. Like,
And really,
can't be that hard, right?
for stories and settings, you don't have to modify anything. It's just monsters.
Right.
But anyways, speaking of monsters, there are 30 unique monsters, and some of them are really cool. Even your favorite, the Blood Hunter, is in here. I thought that was cool.
Interesting.
So, the one last thing before we talk about, because I do want to touch on a few little details here in regarding to the magic, but there's a section called the Wildemount Gazetteer, and it is just a plethora of plot hooks for any D&D game. Like,
wow.
I mean, yes, some of the words and stuff are specific to certain areas, but you can change those out and they become fantastic resource. So
Okay, I didn't even see that. Yeah.
of my favorite part, that's probably my favorite part of this book as a DM, because I can use all of that stuff in my current campaign. I just might have to change a name or something, you know what I mean? And that makes it a very valuable resource. What I'd love to do is put all of these into like a random generator. Hey, maybe I can get Casey back from D&D Speak on here to make a random generator.
What D100 of it? That'd be cool.
But so the last thing I want to touch on really is the special magic.
Yes,
The
very
Dunamancy
important.
is a special magic school that they added.
Yes.
It's basically a school, yeah.
Which-
kind of.
Gravity magic.
I just want to point out gravity magic is like, for me there's like tiers of magic. Gravity magic is like tier 2. It's like right almost to the top where I'm like, yeah, you can do some fun stuff with that. I think the top for me would still be like time magic, because like you could do so much shenanigans with time magic. But like,
Yeah, okay, I can give you that. Time magic's pretty cool, but gravity
Although if you go
is
to the actual
awesome.
science, gravity actually affects time.
which is true, yeah. But
Ah, that's cool. If I have time stop, can I just reflavor it as a Dunamancy spell?
probably, do you want to just like make it like a weird like black hole or something where it just kind of
Oh,
sucks in, creates a pocket?
Yeah, that would be cool.
I've
Anyways,
actually read all the spells in this book, the Dunamancy spells, and some of them are crazy.
yeah, so there's some really good stuff, but instead of going right to the high level stuff, I wanted to pick something that was really cool, but was something that I feel like, because let's be honest, not everyone gets that high tier 8th level, 9th
Oh
level
yeah,
spells.
no, yeah.
So-
Sometimes they don't.
I don't think I've ever played a 5th ed campaign where we've ever gotten that far.
Didn't we go to 8 or 15?
We got
no,
to 12.
we got to 12,
Mm.
which is still fairly high for most people's standards,
Yeah.
admittedly.
That must have been that was one of my earlier games. Because I know we made it, I think one of our campaigns made it to 18. But that was years ago. That was one of the first.
I wasn't there for that.
That was the first
wasn't there for
campaign
that
I think I ever ran for 5th edition. Anyways, the one I want to talk about is called Gravity Sinkhole. Basically,
So cool.
you create a 20-foot radius sphere of crushing force that forms at a point you can see. It's basically a force energy fireball. And it drags everyone towards the center, which
That's
is
so cool.
awesome.
yeah,
Should I tell everyone how much damage that the targets suffer?
Yeah, you can-
5d10 force damage.
yeah.
oh, and it's a con save.
Yes.
It's not even a deck save. rogues are fucked. Oh shit.
Well, and actually, if you look at a lot of the spells in here, they do run off con, and I think that they knew that there's a shortage of spells like that because a lot of the different, almost all the gravity ones for sure are con saves.
That
But
kind of makes sense too, because how can you see a gravity spell, right? Like if this guy's just
Yeah.
doing one of these, like what's that do? I'm like, I don't know what he's doing.
I don't feel like
Um,
strength has hit that much either. So
yep. Well, don't
That's
worry,
true.
I'm working on it.
I was gonna say I could definitely see a strength save being that as well. I
maybe to
suppose,
pull
right?
yourself out of it if it
Right,
was
like
long
you're
lasting.
kind of like trudging through it, like you're using your strength to like get through it. I
Yeah.
guess you could argue that. I could argue that with the DM, but I could definitely see like Constitution being the big one though.
So
I
Like
will
kind of just
add that-
suffering it.
I will add that I've seen this in action on Critical Role, and it was a killing blow to a Dwindelian scout, and it was a nasty
seems like overkill
experience.
for a single guy.
No, I think it was I'd say it was a killing blow in that regard, and this was an NPC. And I think he was the leader of the scouting party too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the reason behind the caster targeting the scout captain was reasonable to use a 4th level Dunamantic spell on the guy, because it wasn't very pretty.
I just realized if you wanted to use this with like an 8th level slot, that's 9d10 damage.
Ouch.
Ugh. Of just like a fireball effect, where you're just like, I'm gonna crush everybody in this sphere. Goodbye.
Now, I don't want to get too much into it, but there's a high level spell here that very much represents the ideal of what Dunamancy is, and it's called Reality Break.
I want to hear about it.
And
I
so
wanna hear it.
basically, you shatter the realities, you shatter the barriers between realities and timelines, thrusting a creature into turmoil and madness. And
I've
there's
read this, and it's ridiculous. It's an
That
8th
sounds-
level spell.
yeah,
That
and
sounds dope.
you have to roll on a d10 to determine its effects, ranging from they suffer terrible visions from the far realm, or they experience the chill of the dark void, which is just it is really cool. So there's a
And
lot
all the-
of
Does it deal
all the-
like an absurd damage number either, or
Like
does it just?
multiple D12s.
yeah.
Oh,
I think
ow.
the dark void is 10d12 cold damage.
That's a lot. I guess it's an 8th level spell, but it's still like holy
Right.
shit.
And that's
Yeah,
if
it'll
you
wreck your
roll
shit.
a 9 or a 10 on the D10 for
Oh,
the effects.
man. That would be
So-
fun though. Could you imagine just being like a, I don't know, I guess like a sorcerer or a wizard, I guess. But like you're just like, I'm literally going to cause so much catastrophic mayhem into your brain that you're just gonna you're just gonna fall and die, dude. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Critical Role's current party has a wizard in their party. He's
Ugh.
slowly learning these spells, and
man,
I
that's
can
awesome.
see him using Reality Break.
I just love the name too. It's very RPG sounding. It's your turn. What action do you use? Reality Break. It's like what? It's like Chaos Beam Blaster Sword. I don't know.
So, I think that's the majority of what we want to talk about.
Again, there's so much in here.
Yeah, there's a lot of new spells, the new class. I think there's new subclasses that we didn't touch on that specifically for the wizard that target and deal with the gravity magic and the Dunamancy stuff.
We also didn't talk about the new backgrounds that are in there as well, which are other player options. There's also the tons of unique items that we just kind of just.
Yeah, I did pick one to talk about for the magic item. So,
Okay.
Ooh.
cool.
but yeah, there's like
whatever,
70
we do talk
unique
about it.
magic items. So,
And just so we're clear, my big takeaway about this is anything that gives more options to players is always a win in my book.
Yes, always.
And this definitely does do that.
not so much stuff that it's like splat books that are every month. Okay, Watsy, don't do
Mhm.
that. I like the rate you're releasing stuff. Don't increase it. I can't afford that.
Agreed.
Now, it is worth noting that there is 4 adventures in this book for you to run One of them recently we mentioned on our Let's Talk About Blank segment that you can actually pick up for free on Roll20, but
Oh
they're
yeah,
I think it's
Frozen Sick.
Frozen Sick, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And the artwork and maps are beautiful, so kudos to the team. The stories are pretty cool. I only read 2 of the 4 because I don't have all day.
Yep.
But so it comes with good adventures too. So definitely, in my opinion, which take it with a grain of salt, is worth the pickup, especially if you're a dungeon master. If you're
Yes.
running a homebrew, there's so much content in here that can just make your
That you can
world
just
better.
Yeah, you can just switch out like little names added in. Boom, you now have a fantastic homebrew city that you could just rip out from just in the innumerable cities in this book that you can
Yeah.
just be like, I'm gonna take this one because it sounds cool. Change the name. Now it's mine.
Yeah, and I mean, all you have to change is the name of the city and a couple of You don't even have to change the name of the people. Like for Pale Bank Village, it gives you a population, it distributes it pretty nicely, and then it tells you
Mm-hmm.
what the government is. It's run by an elf ranger named Elro Aldator. He is the appointed leader of the village, and he delegates tasks to proven friends and trustworthy allies. You don't really need to change that unless you don't let elves run rampant in your world, you know? But
Right. Like again, we could probably go all day, but
yeah, we're not
that's
going
that's
to.
the that's the big stuff that
um,
we got to.
so I think that'll do it for our main topic today. Um, the Explorer's Guide to Wildemount.
Mm-hmm.
Did we miss anything, Mr. Master of Critical Role?
I don't think so.
I
That's the
think
right
we hit
answer.
everything in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as much as we could. I mean, this thing is like
Right. It's
304 pages, so
there you
that doesn't include the big giant map.
go. Yeah.
So once
The
again,
map is
kudos.
great.
Once
That was
again,
awesome.
kudos to Matt Mercer and the team behind it, James Introcaso, James Haig.
Mm-hmm.
You guys just did some fantastic work on this book, and I hope that it is a super success. So.
Seriously, it's great.
All right, that'll do it for our main topic. Before we move on to our Unner tips and tricks, we have a gift to give away. Compliments of our boy, Jeff Stevens. Austin, would you like to tell us about it?
Absolutely. This is from Jeff Stevens. It is the Villains and Layers 2. Not mistaken with 3 or 1. Revolutionize your games with this collection of 28 villainous NPCs, from Small Fry to World Ender, 8 of which include maps and details of their layers, sinister side quests, terrifying overlords, bounties, one-shots, and more life in wait for you in Villains and Layers 2.
Yeah. Who's
There's
the
a lot.
winner, Ian?
Our winner today is Ben Wolf.
Oh.
It's two O, so
Wolf. Is that like a wolf in a sheep's clothing? Because a wool? Nobody?
Ah.
Okay. Yeah, whatever.
I got it. I caught it. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Congratulations, Ben. If you enjoyed the adventure, please leave Jeff Stevens a review. If they didn't win, have no fear. Crit Academy's here. Head on over to critacademy.com/Jeff Stevens and get Villains and Layers 3 for free. That's it, for free.
Yeah, it's nothing. It's cheap.
Do it. Take care of it. All for
Yeah.
you. Do you know why we do this? Because we love you guys.
Yeah.
With mouth.
Oh man.
All right. I don't have any cool intro music or anything to toss in here, so we are just going to say we are moving on to our Unearthed Tips and Tricks segment where we bring you new and reusable material for both players and DMs.
Very exciting.
I don't know why I didn't bring my tablet in here. I probably
Yeah,
could
yeah,
have. No
yeah.
reason I couldn't have. Sorry, guys.
Whatever.
So our character concept comes from Kyle Stakig. Ian, would you like to tell us about it?
oh no, not again.
Yeah, I picked you again. Oh wait, no, that's the name of the. I'm sorry.
Fail. That character has lived many lives, but has no recollection of them. The only time they remember anything is when they begin an encounter with something that has killed them previously.
Oh.
At which point they say, "Oh no, not again." They have no knowledge of any resistance, immunities, or tactics any creature that killed them has because, well, they were always the first to die. However, the player can choose to have fun with this and have memorable deaths that their characters has had previously. Now, this is fun flavor.
Oh yeah.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I'm thinking immediately of like the guy that keeps dying over and over again in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and he keeps being reincarnated as something else. And
Oh, man.
he always keeps being killed by the main character Arthur Dent throughout the series.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
To tie this into our main topic, I totally could see this being a Hollowed character, a Hollowed One character.
Or even an echo, or like an Echo Knight, where like the echoes had died, and like
Oh.
maybe the Echo is scared. And he's like, "Oh fuck, not this!" And you're like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I've died to this thing before."
And this could tie into the religion of the Kryn dynasty with the Luxon and all that, because
That'd be-
their religion involves reincarnation.
Ooh. I didn't-
Okay.
That's cool.
Did
Oh,
not
I
know
did
that.
read about that. That was one of the big sticking points of their whole culture, right?
Mhm.
Thing going on. Did not know that.
In fact, the queen of the dynasty is a big believer of such a thing.
The more you know.
So Kyle actually gave us a few examples. I love this one. It says when you see a bugbear for the first time. Oh, not again! I had my arms ripped off by one of these things. It slowly bled to death last time.
That's brutal, dude.
Or the one character I mentioned. Why do you hate me so much? Why? Do you know how many times you killed me? I remember back during the prehistoric era where I was a young rabbit who finally took my first breath of life and cut out the hole. And then you stabbed me with a spear and killed me. And not only did you eat me, you turned my skin into a bag. My next life, I was a fly who was just flying around my own business. But then you crushed me with the bag you made me out of my own skin.
Oh my god.
That's funny.
And he went on to this massive monologue. You get the idea.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
I love this character concept. It sounds like it will be so much fun.
Oh. I know the characters also eat the petunia. Yes, that appeared out of nowhere and fell. That's why it's like not again.
See,
Oh, man.
this is really cool. I think it would be a great way to get a lot out of the Hollowed one option. Or if you run the Revenant, is it a race or a sub race? I don't remember.
I don't remember offhand.
I think it was in the Unearthed Arcana that does something similar, where
It
they
might
were
have
bad
been-
once.
No, I think that was it's a race. It's not a sub race, I think. I think it's a
Okay.
race. From
Yeah.
what I remember.
I think this would make a great cleric. Explains why you're so bound to your deity. They just keeps bringing you back to try again.
He's like, all right, you'll get him this time. Get him back. Get back in there, champ.
I think that'll do it for our character concept. Let's all do a long, big sigh of exhaustion. Because our monster variant is from Travis Pace. It is the Desert Sharknado.
Are you serious?
I am.
Here we go.
So from the distance, it looks just like another twister spinning its way across the desert, but upon closer glance reveals it to be made up of dozens upon dozens of figures caught in an infinite twirl of dust with teeth and claws. Now, this is
All right.
intriguing. So, he gave us a bunch of really cool lore. I'm going to read the lore and we're just going to talk about the mechanics briefly, but he says, after the fall of Netheril, the great sand sea of Anarach was left in turmoil. War was constant, and during one of these battles, two powerful druids faced off in an epic battle. I love that it's druids and not wizards, by the way. Kudos
Okay.
to you, because it's always wizards. One harnessed the great power over the winds and the weather itself, and create a massive swirling tornado of wind and sand to rip the enemy forces apart, while the other one used its affinity for animals and summoning to build an army of lesser elementals. In this case, the monster we're using is Sand Mephit, and powerful beasts known as Bullets, to attack head on during the battle somehow unexpectedly. The weave of magic was so unstable that a spike of magical essence coursed through the two forces and fused them together and form a new threat that both destruction to both sides. Oh my god. That sounds awesome.
Oh, good. What is happening?
So basically, what he did is he took some of the core features of the Greater Air Elemental and the Dust Method and combined it with the Swarm rules. And then every so often, you spit out a Bullet that comes flying out of the thing. Oh
Okay.
my god. Now, this is a high CR. He's got it at a CR 9. But you could lower the AC. Oh, excuse me. You could lower the AC and the hit points to make it a little weaker. But I love the idea of this being less about a monster and more of just like a terrorizing event that happens to desert towns on regular basis, where like every so often this giant twirling thing just comes up. There's more bullets. They're constantly hiring adventurers to fend off the bullets. Everything they got is made out of bones from the bullets. Out of
Oh my
they
God.
eat their flesh. They use oil from them.
Ooh.
I love this being less about a monster and more about like this just disaster that just kind of swoops in. What do you guys think?
I think that's hilarious. It's just so
Right.
silly, but it's so D&D.
Oh yeah.
That's what I think what makes it cool. It's just like, yeah, I could see this. I could see two players being idiots and they're like arc druids trying to fuck around with against each other and like, oops, now we just created a desert sharknado. I don't know what to do about it. I don't know.
Could you imagine going back to your leader? Sir, I've got good news and I got bad news. What's the good news? Well, the other army is destroyed. What's the bad news? So is ours. But now I've got worse news. There's a giant twister throwing bullets at us coming this way. Oh my
I
god.
can just imagine the commanders like, what the fuck happened out there?
Yep.
Oh,
I
and
have
the first thing that came to mind for me is the meme that's been going around this past week in a few D&D Facebook groups of basically druids summoning water elementals and summoning sharks inside the water elementals.
I did see that. I wonder if that's where this came from. I'm
Maybe.
not sure, but it's definitely very
Concept, anyway.
it's very interesting. The core abilities you're going to want is the Swarm feature, the Whirlwind, and now on Initiative 20, a Bullet is flung 15 foot out of the elemental in a random direction and lands prone. The Bullet only has 1 HP once it lands, but I think this is fantastic, and honestly, it would just sow chaos at any table.
Oh, absolutely. If you just want some random crazy shit, this is it. This is
Yep.
the one.
For sure. I think that'll do it for our monster variant, the Desert Sharknado. Thank you, Travis, for this piece of magic. If you go to critacademy.com, you can find the blog with all the details of our notes and these UTTs. So
I have a sneaking suspicion that he's a big fan of the franchise.
Maybe, you know.
somebody's got to be watching it to make them have like 4 of them, or how many are there?
Too many.
I don't know.
One was too many.
Yeah.
Enough.
Ian, would you like to tell us about our counter of the podcast? Now, this is the one you submitted for us to use last week when we were discussing the ultra modern. So, would you like to tell us
Yeah.
about it?
All right. The unwilling creation.
Okay.
The players receive a mysterious message that comes with a flood of information, be it through a series of flashing images in their mind, a string of pictures on their phones, hence why it was for ultramodern because of technology and all that jazz.
Could be a
Mhm.
tablet.
A letter with jumbled words and text that suddenly teleports in front of them, or a series of distorted audio through their comm links, or even in their general area. Though many elements aren't clear, there's a sense of fear from someone seemingly innocent and vulnerable, perhaps childlike, attached with it. The only thing that was clear was 2 words that almost seemed to come from a child. Help me.
But
Should the players choose to try to piece it together, it can lead to a mystery that leads to a wizard's workshop, a lab of a corporation, or even the basement of a psychologically questionable scientist.
We don't say mad here. We say psychologically questionable.
This will lead to the players finding someone or something, such as a sophisticated computer AI who may be sentient, a magically grown homunculus, a child who was subjected to the experiments that manifest psychic gifts. Whatever the players discover, regardless of the intentions of the captor, they have discovered something that is new, something potentially dangerous, and it wants out.
Ooh,
Okay.
I really like this a lot.
I do too. I like the whole like innocence of the child in the very beginning
Mm-hmm.
because it sets up something because that just leads to worlds already, right? You have no idea what's going to happen from this point because there's a child in front of you and it says help me. You're like, oh boy,
Right.
are you looking for your mom or are you subjected to horrible experiments from a weird scientist guy? Like, I don't know. We're gonna find out.
And obviously, because this was made from ultra modern, but you can make it like a wizard or something like that, an
Yep.
alchemist. So
Oh, yeah.
you can easily twist this to fit whatever setting you want. But I thought this was really clever and really cool. What do you think about it there, Matt?
Um, this is very interesting. I can see this happening in ultra modern, but I like to see it happen in a classic D&D setting, just to
Okay.
see what happens.
Yes, this to me seems like something that brings back the old age question of, if you had a time machine, could you go back and take out baby Hitler? Something like that. Because clearly this kid has got problems and is dangerous, but it's not really their fault at this moment, right? But could it lead to them becoming like a crazy psychotic killer?
Mhm.
Perhaps.
That's kind of
And
what
like-
I envision.
And like I said, maybe be what is in prison for a very good reason. Like picture like the kid from Brightburn, for example,
Oh my God, yes. Maybe it
Or-
may,
or the Purple Man from Jessica Jones.
those are good examples. Where you've got a kid that potentially
Killgrave, yeah.
to the adventurers seems innocent and sweet, but turns out it was in there because it went on a massacre and killed everybody. So
Nah.
I like stuff like this. I love moral ambiguity. My players know that. I like putting you in situations where right isn't necessarily right,
Mhm.
but needs to be done. So
It could be a whole nature versus nurture argument too. So
I agree.
Lots of moral ambiguity, fun stuff. Like it.
Like it, love it, share it. All right, that'll do it for our encounter of the podcast, The Unwilling Creation.
Fun stuff.
Matt, would you like to tell us about the magic item that we have pulled from the Explorer's Guide of Wildemount?
Sure thing. This is a dispelling stone. It is a wondrous item, very rare. This smooth, rainbow-colored, egg-shaped stone can be thrown up to 30 feet and explodes in a 10-foot radius sphere of magical energy on impact, destroying the stone. Any active spell of 5th or lower in the sphere ends.
Huh.
I love this.
It's basically a dispel grenade.
Yes.
Yep.
I love it. And I love it for two reasons. One, I love what it does. Secondly, I love that it's destroyed in the process. Because
Consumable.
it makes it a consumable object, which I have no problem giving out to my players because it's one of those, is now the moment. It's like Krillin with the spirit bomb energy. When will I know is the right moment to use this? Was it
Yep.
that moment? Shit, that guy died. It probably was that moment, but there might be a worse situation later. You
Right.
know? And I love it because, damn it, why didn't I think of it first? Like,
Yeah.
a small little item to help the group, especially the all melee with no magic users, deal with powerful magics.
Yeah,
And in that
especially
situation.
Yeah, especially if they have a good arm.
Yeah. The best thing is I like it for my monsters to use against my players.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Oh, you're hiding behind that cute shield. That's sweet. Gone. Don't need a
Yeah,
beholder.
I think-
What if it was made out of the eye of a beholder?
That'd be cool too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think the Mighty Knight have picked this up sometime and failed to use it in terms of throwing it.
Like just like threw it and it like dropped out of their hand. One of those fails.
I think no, distance wise, they kind of nailed it, but direction wise, they were kind of off.
They threw it the wrong direction.
Well, not entirely opposite, but just veer off to the left or right of a target or something.
Hmm.
If you throw this onto a no, that's a feature. I was thinking if you throw this onto a druid, does they like shapeshift back? But that's a feature, not magic.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not considered magic. Yeah.
Because this
Although-
specifically says a spell.
Although if the
Yes.
Dispelling Stone says that it had the anti-magic field blast, that would probably be the case.
Mm,
So
I don't know.
yeah, because this specifically says like a spell of 5th level or lower. So
Yeah.
It
it's
has to be an
not.
active spell too.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, it's not. It's not an anti-magic field. It's an anti-magic spell thing.
Yeah.
So that seems. I don't know if that wording was intentional or not. I mean,
I
usually
think it
I
was
assume it is.
intentional.
So, anyways, I think this is really cool. I would love to have this, and the reason I included this is because I'm stealing it for my campaign. So all you guys that use magic, be prepared. Just like
So all 3 of us.
yeah, all of you. Oh yeah, I guess Brandon's not involved no more. So Brandon, we miss you.
Currently.
I miss my gun mage actually. Watching it blow shit up was like watching a baby toddler walk for the first time.
Oh.
Had to bring that up.
I think that'll do it for our magic item of the podcast from the Explorer's Guide to Wildemount, Dispelling Stone.
Old Handy says fjord through it, but it wasn't a cone that already canceled magical effects. So.
So it was wasted. That's hilarious.
Oh man.
Oh yeah, thank you, Handy.
Austin, would you like to tell us about our Dungeon Master tip today?
Always. Today's Dungeon Master tip is legendary adventuring groups. Enhance your campaign world by including the exploits of other renowned adventuring parties, whether it's Vox Machina, the Mighty Nine, or a previous group that the party had run in the past. See, this to me is really cool because I actually, when I wanted to DM for my group for a little while, I always wanted to have like a group that was like this NPC group that was always kind of with them, kind of not like actually like standing with them, but they were doing the same. They were
Sort of
undergoing
stuff.
similar events with them, right? So then they kind of became this like rival group, as like I would
Ooh,
envision.
I like
And eventually, they would, either they would either befriend them. Maybe it's kind of unlikely. The intention was they were going to eventually fight them, and it would be this. Maybe they struck down. Blanking on her name right now. Holy cow!
that. Can't help you.
The angel, fallen angel. Maybe they struck down Zariel. That's what I was thinking.
Zariel?
Yes, and like they're holding the something particular, and they they have the item that they may have gotten, I think, from Zariel. I don't know, maybe they had some. I don't remember exactly, but the point is they're gonna see them, and then instead of like like they're preparing for Zariel, right? They're like, oh, we gotta fight this fallen angel, and like they see the group who has already triumphed, and then they have to fight them so they can save Elturel,
Right,
which
right.
was kind of like the cool part. But
That is
that was,
really cool.
that was my idea of it. So I was gonna tweak the ending, and that was gonna be the fun part. But
Well, the reason I came up with this, not only for the topic we're discussing, but I just started adding notes to our current campaign to include the Azure Crows, which is your previous adventuring party, into the story. And I was like, you know what? Everyone should do that because having a known something to compare to could be really fun as a DM to insult players with or praise them with. Imagine, if you will, your group of adventurers walks into a village that has been under siege repeatedly by let's say, orcs. And you have been tasked with rescuing them from this horrible raiding that's going on. And there's we'll use the Mighty Nine as an example to stick with the theme. And the entire time you accept this, he's like, there's NPCs that are saying, I wish we had the help of Vox Machina or the Mighty Nine. Instead, we've got these guys.
interesting.
So what ends up happening is you slay the orcs and you stop them from raiding, and then you go on your way. And later on, you hear tales of a group of bandits who raided that village and took it over because the only thing that was holding back the bandits was the orcs. And so the Vox Machina or the Mighty Nine or whoever the other adventuring group had to come in and clean up your mess. And so,
Oh man.
So now there's a constant spew from your BS of what you did and how you had to be saved by another group of adventurers. And I think that could be just so much fun.
I can agree to that. That'd be really interesting. Again, whole point is add in some really just again legendary adventuring groups. Just a great idea. You guys should just probably use it.
Yeah,
It's
and
great.
the other thing is that when you do this, you could hear whispers of while you're doing your own little exploits. Hey, you saved the village from the orcs. You might hear rumors of the Vox Machina and their battle with Vecna that just went underway or that just finished or something along those lines. It makes the world feel like there's other adventures out there and you can hear about the sort of stuff they're doing, which will hopefully encourage the players to want to get to that level.
Alternatively, what you can even do with that is if your players actually, of course, start to get to that level of heroism that they are, you can actually start saying like, oh, these guys kind of remind us of Vox Machina. It's
Ooh,
almost like we
I
have
like
the
that.
Mighty Nine here, or
The
like,
Mighty
oh,
Three.
yeah, except now there's only three, yeah, but whatever.
That's funny.
But you
I
can
like
do
that.
stuff like that. So like as they're getting stronger, you can add to like their fame,
Right.
which I always thought was cool. In particularly when I was doing the World of Darkness series, so like Vampire the Masquerade, or in my case was the Vampire the Dark Ages. There is actually like a fame like point
Here.
thing. Yeah, and I loved that. Like I always was like, oh yeah, dude, I'm gonna invest so hard in this because I want to be fucking famous. Like I want to walk around. People are like, holy shit, it's that guy, and I'm like, yeah, it's me.
I
It's
know in
me.
Shadowrun they do track like both fame, notoriety, and so how notorious you are. So you might be
Mhm.
famous just for
For
the
the
wrong
bad
reasons.
things.
Right, right.
So like that kind of stuff to me was always really cool. So
Right.
I don't know, do that.
What do you think, Matt? How would you like to run into Vox Machina or hear their name or Mighty Nine's name pulled up in your campaign and your adventures?
Uh, because we're using Vox Machina and the Mighty Nine, and I've seen them a lot. Don't expect what you've heard personality-wise.
That's funny.
In terms of personality, don't expect what you've heard.
That's funny. All right. I think that'll do it for our Dungeon Master tip of the podcast, the legendary adventuring groups. Do we
Mhm.
want to try to see if we can line this up?
It's not gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen.
All right. I'll just say it then and we'll move on.
Yeah.
Our player tip of the podcast is don't be a dick. And you can avoid dickitude by including powerful allies in rival relationships.
Ooh.
Now, this is a very much a condensed part of the Explorer's Guide to Wildemount. Even before your character's adventuring career begins, they had allies who supported them, and they had competitive rivals. Your allies may have been, family, friends, local militiamen, local priests, what have you. But what makes it interesting is how can you tie your character to an ally and a rival? So one of the examples they give for a rival would be you thought you had killed this family member, whether by accident or otherwise. You never expected to see them again, but now they're out for your blood. This is interesting because now you've got a direct tie to something that happened in your past, some sort of event. And what's cool is if you left it bland like that, the DM can roll on it. Not roll like dice, but just roll with it. And
Right.
say, okay, well, what did happen? Does your character remember? Maybe they pull you aside and have a little discussion about this because they want to introduce this person. Or maybe you've got this tiny little line, and then, half a year into the campaign, you run into this big bad mother effer with the mask on. He reveals after stomping your ass to the ground to be the cousin that you thought you pushed off a cliff. Well, you pushed off a cliff by mistake, right? But he doesn't know it's by mistake, so he's been hunting you down all this time. And to me, that's interesting because it gives story and lore for the DM to tug on. Now, one of the ally examples is this family member caused you to have a horrible accident when you were a child. They still feel incredible guilt, which they would do anything to alleviate. Once again, it's bland enough that, well, what was the horrible accident? Oh, you're a Dragonborn. Maybe you weren't born a Dragonborn. Maybe some magical
Maybe
accident,
something
poof,
really
turned you
bad
into
happened.
one, right? Maybe you've got a severe scar. Maybe you're an amputee. Maybe you're blind, you know. You can tie that sort of ally into your story and your flavor features. But what's interesting is beyond that, when in a time of need, you can call on that person when you need help. For me, oh, Brandon, you're not here? Well, that's okay. Allie, my ally Billy owes me a life debt. He's gonna come fill in for you, or something like that. Or maybe you
Right.
need somebody to deliver a message, and they have to go through dangerous situations. It basically gives the DM something to pull on from your past and make it personal, as well as gives you something to tie directly to your character's backstory and help build an interesting backstory. What do you guys think?
Um, well, mine is more on the emphasis of the powerful allies. And this has happened with Critical Role months ago. Both parties have met an Arcanist from Taldore, including the Mighty Nine, and the whole player group was just freaking out that it's the same character, but it's with their new characters
Hmm.
this time.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is really cool. So they run into a powerful group of allies that is their other characters. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
That is cool.
Effectively, I think. Yeah. Okay. I can
Yeah.
I can get behind that. Or in front of that.
Alternatively, maybe they're the rivals. Maybe you did something really bad and you slandered their name. You're like, oh, the Azure Crows, fuck those guys. They didn't do
I'm
anything.
gonna come
They
and
weren't
kick their
there for
ass.
us.
Or
They
like
weren't
that.
there for us.
Or have the allies or rivals just keep popping up the campaign. I can just picture it, for example, where the party is going through like this old dungeon to try to get this old artifact. But when you get there, to like the pedestal was supposed to be, all you see is a note that says, "You shall remember this once again as the day you almost beat Oslo Bronzehand to the treasure." Oslo!
Oh my god, if that becomes a reoccurring theme, how awesome would it be?
That'd be great.
Uh,
I hate that.
Or this I've seen in cartoons and shit before too, where you've got the heroes at the very end and they're trying to overcome the challenge, and then the rival swoops in while they're dealing with the threat, steals the object, and then leaves while they're still fighting the threat. It's like we're
Oh,
doing
man.
all the work.
Right? Man.
Oh my gosh.
Or the party's fighting a boss, and it's a hard-fought fight. Everybody, boss and party included, is down to their last legs. Out of the blue, an arrow whistles out of nowhere. I killed the bad guy!
It's still in
turned
credit.
around.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Oslo!
Now this is something that came directly out. There is a huge section on allies and rivals and everything that happens inside this book. It's pages long. And it is just a great piece of advice when building your story and your world. Oh, I didn't touch on it very much, but the one thing that they did really, really well is the focus is less on the DM doing the work and more on here's what you guys can do as a group to help fill out the world. And this was one of those things. So
Okay.
I think that'll do it for our player tip of the podcast. Don't be a dick. And you can avoid dickitude by including powerful allies and rival relationships in your backstories.
Yeah.
Whew. That actually
that's
that was pretty good. It wasn't super long, wasn't super short. I like it.
Yeah.
I hope you guys will join us next week when we're going to try to do what we can to catch them all. We are going to be visiting the Pokemon Pokedex 5E Kanto region. These guys have statted out all 151 original Pokemon
Yeah.
as monsters in 5th edition.
That'd be interesting.
And I am
Are you serious?
serious. And I am super excited to cover it because hell yes. I grew up with this stuff. I loved it. And oh my God, just running into these monsters, even if you don't call them by their name,
Can you imagine seeing Mewtwo, dude? I'm gonna like, what is this thing? I don't know. It's like some weird
something.
And this guy just goes like, and you just go.
Being psychic and shit, yeah. So I'm really excited to talk about that next week. So hopefully you guys will join us for that. Austin, do you want to take that first sign off segment, and then we can have our buddy Matt take the third one, and then Ian the last one there?
Sure. If you have any feedback, unearthed tips and tricks, or topics you would like us to discuss, please send them to us. You can email them to us at critacademy@gmail.com, or you can find us on Twitter and Facebook at Crit Academy. And honestly, everywhere else. We're kind of on all the main platforms of social media.
Yes.
We hope you've enjoyed your experience here at Crit Academy. If you did, you can help others find the show by leaving a hopefully 5-star review on iTunes, or just send us a message telling us how much you enjoy the show. Also, be sure to give us a like and share.
Make sure to subscribe to our show at critacademy.com. Follow us on Twitch TV/Crit Academy and subscribe on YouTube so we can help you on your future adventures, as well as a chance to win cool prizes each and every week. And also make sure to check out our fellowship members as well.
Absolutely. First of all, can I just say kudos to Ian? He has been taking snippets from the show for our DM tips, player tips, magic items, monster variants, and putting them up as individual little 2 to 5 minute video clips. And they are very cool, and they're segmented very nice. And can I just say you did a good job including the nice little artwork. So
lots of digging has to be done.
Yeah. I'm waiting for him to get to at least 5 a week, so he's at least doing as many as we put out for the show, but that might be some time away as long as he's still engrossed by his 3D printer.
And actually work.
Yeah, make sure to check out our fellowship members at critacademy.com/critnation. Check out Gabe and Jeff from Interparty Conflict. Every week they answer your questions like awesome professionals. Their show is fantastic and glorious. Can't recommend it enough. Also check out the only actual play on the podcast, the Brute Force and Ignorance Show. Those guys are from all over the world and are absolutely hilarious. There's one of the few actual plays that I actually do listen to. And that's not because they're part of the Crit Nation Fellowship. That's because they're actually really, really good. Not to say I don't got anything for Matt Mercer, but there's so many episodes to play catch up on. I'm only on like 80 something. How many episodes of the first season are there?
I think 114, 115.
Ooh,
and
so there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, and that's not including one-shot specials that they did.
So lots of good stuff. Well, that'll do it for the show today. Oh, I just want to say that it looks like Steve's got an 8-year-old daughter that would rock her world to run into Pokemon. So that's the reason I want to do it, because it's exciting.
Yeah, that Vegeta, it's a Chaozu.
I'm not a Pokemon.
Nappa. No.
Old Handy DK says, my 4-year-old just started the original series last week. Now I'm excited about this.
Oh, ooh. Awesome. Well, let's hope we excite everybody. Let's tickle your dice. I am your host, Justin.
I'm your guest, Matthew.
I'm your co-host, Ian.
And I'm your co-host, Austin.
Thank you for listening. Keep
your blades sharp and spells prepared, heroes. What a great show. We're going to go ahead and let's all wave to the cameras and say goodbye. Thank you all for joining us so much. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Adios, muchachos.